welcome, coaches. And very exciting that we're going to have good weather this weekend. And I want to say a huge congratulations to your crews who have made it, and a huge thank you to the seating committee and Betsy and Ann, who kept us all honest with the compliance, and Tony and Steve, who've worked tirelessly behind the scenes with Joe, Thad, and a bunch of others to hopefully put together a seamless regatta on Saturday. If this is a little awkward because I don't see anybody except the people who are speaking. So if you have questions after this meeting, be sure to email Betsy and myself, and we'll do our best to get you the answers as quickly as possible. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Joe. Joe is in charge of all of the logistics on site. He will be the guy helping us get the trailers in and setting up for what I hope to be a great afternoon tomorrow and a terrific race on Saturday.
Thanks, Eric. Many of you have experienced this regatta before and understand how tight the parking is in the lot, but we do manage to fit everybody in. You'll see the arrival and parking sheet. That's really just a schematic, obviously, but the important thing here is that you follow the directions from the person who is guiding you in the lot, which initially will be me, and I'll have somebody else helping me as well. But there's very little space, one parking space in between the trailers. So that means, we need to be careful. We need to be aligned. There are traffic lines, parking space lines there. When you're looking at this drawing, those areas in black are the granite islands, and obviously they're an obstacle to running trailers continuously throughout. We work around, but we can get, in theory, as many as 38 trailers in. I'm not planning on that. If you look on the lower right, those last 3 spots, we're going to hold out till the end. There may be some trailers that are going to be going in and out, and I'd like to have those. Please don't take it on your own self to find a space. Please be guided in. I know, I believe at least 32 crews have signed up and reserved a spot on a sheet. We'll get you all in. I don't know if that sheet is still available to people for sign up, but if you're on that list, you'll get a spot. If you're not on that list, we will have a discussion with you. Trailers will start arriving tomorrow, starting at 8 o'clock and up till 7 p.m. I think the latest that I saw was 6:30, but we will have mercy. If you're running a little bit late, or if your ETA that you put on that sheet is inaccurate, please text me or call me. Do not email me. Right now I've got 4,000 emails on my phone, literally. Just text me or call me, and we'll make sure that somebody's waiting for you. So it's very tight parking. There won't be any way to rig boats in between the trailers. So this is very important, where cooperation is going to come into play. All of the flat grass areas in the park will ask to be dedicated towards boat rigging and storage. We don't want anything, we can't have anything on paved areas in terms of rigging and boat storage. It needs to go on the grass areas. So therefore, we want tents to go on the gentle slopes or in the slightly wooded areas around. There is room. We've done this before with all of you, and most of you know the drill. It's obviously first come, first serve to getting places, but please don't spread out. Just take the absolute minimum that you can use, understanding we're going to share space in this park for everyone. There are about a dozen pipe racks on the south side of the building. Again, those are first come, first serve. I have nothing to do with it. I just won't. I'll resolve any fights about it, though. Please, I'm sure you'll all cooperate. There are some handicap spots in the parking lot those must be left open. They always get filled, and aware of it. And the important thing for me is to make sure that we keep an emergency travel lane open at all times. So again, we don't want any rigging going on in the parking lot itself. Has to be on the other side of the granite curb, either towards the street side or towards the water side. There is plenty of room for you all. There always has been. There always will be. But we're close to maxing out. But honestly, we'll see you all in the morning or in the afternoon, and looking forward to seeing everybody again. Okay, that's all I have, Ted.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. I did also want to interject. There is an option if anybody does have any questions. At the bottom of your screen, there's a little icon that looks like a triangle, square, and circle. If you click that, there is a Q&A option. I will be monitoring that the whole time, and we can address any questions that may come up during this presentation after. And up next is the co-regatta director, Steve McCarron, to talk about traffic patterns. Steve?
Yep, thank you. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I know a lot of you have been here before. Some of this stuff, again, is self-explanatory. For those of you that are new to it, so Regatta Point is the top left there. That's where we'll be launching from. Again, the practice pattern, launch from the dock, you can head straight down, and you can head through the 290 bridge for practices. You will not be able to do that on race day. Most importantly, with heading down the course, do not cross through the buoys. Okay, please don't do half a piece or half a workout. Once you're on the course, you're doing a full loop. Okay, and the next slide will show you the lanes which you can go in. Lane 2 is going to be a dead lane. We will have safety launches out there. And then as you can see, again, lane 6, the far lane, is on the outside. Keep that pressure to a minimum, and the pieces for lanes 5, 4, and 3. And then again, on race days, you can see going below 290 is no longer an option. A few important things here, which we've had to address in the past. When you're going down the course, please be mindful of races coming in the opposite direction. We would prefer that you're not doing any pressure pieces going down the course, because that's going to leave a wake going on to particularly onto lane 1, which you don't want you to do. Getting your warm up in on land is probably going to be your best option. So please plan to get a sizable warm up in on land. You won't get a lot of work done on the course. You may be able to get some starts done down below the starting line, but again, going down to the starting line, that should be very light pressure. Shouldn't be any passing unless the launch is there to tell you that you can pass. We don't want to risk someone drifting into lane 1. And I think the Coxswains, again, leave the competition for the race and try not to be so competitive, and let's kind of work together when we're going to the race. And, lastly, this is below the starting line. Again, don't cross the middle of that pattern. There will be launches there, but we don't want you to cross the middle. Yeah, you can practice. You probably can practice a couple of starts there, but if you're going to do that, let's communicate with each other. It's not a bad thing. Just tell one coxswain to the other, hey, I'm going to do my first 5 or whatever it may be. But again, doing anything more than that, you're probably taking a risk there. So prefer you don't do that. Do not come into the starting gate until you are called up. Again, we will have plenty of launches there to call you up. And I think, Doug, you're going to talk about them backing it in and being set up for the start.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. There was actually one question that did pop up during that. The question was, can I go through the Route 9 bridge on Friday practice?
No. So yeah, going through the Route 9 bridge is never an option.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. That's yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve. And without further ado, to bring up the U.S. rowing and refereeing points, let me introduce our chief referee, Doug Stowe. Doug? Oh, Doug, you're muted. Still nothing, Doug. Oh, jeez. All right. Well, while Doug gets the microphone going again, there was another question. The question was, is this race exactly 2K or a little shorter?
The race is 1,500 meters.
Thank you. We did get another question while we're reading. What would be the mechanism for getting on the course to do warm-up pieces as previously mentioned?
Are we
I'm
talking
guessing-
about Friday or?
I'm guessing that's a practice question, practice day.
The mechanism for getting onto the course, is that?
The mechanism for getting on the course to do warm-up, I would say, you know, how do they get on the course to do warm-up pieces? I mean,
Yeah, there are 2 docks. There's one by the boathouse, and then there'll be one down on or 2 down by the slope. You can launch from either of those docks.
perfect. Thank you. I apologize, everybody. We'll give it one more second.
In terms of the docks, I want to also mention that those are the only docks to be used. There is another dock that's further south past the finish line. Do not use that dock. It's off limits.
All right, can you hear me now?
There he is. Perfect.
All right, same thing happened the last time. Remarkable. Must be a timer or something. All right, so thank you everybody for your patience. I'm sorry, I have no explanation for this. I want to start out by making it very clear that if there's ever an issue on the water for any of your crews, please let any of the referees know as soon as possible, and we will attend to it as best as possible. It's been an interesting spring. We've had a lot of broken equipment. We had an athlete in the water in the warm-up area. So our referees are on pretty good boat. And I'm really proud to say that just about every single boat that had an issue was able to race. And that's what we know everybody's worked so hard to be able to do. We will, at Control Commission, be checking heel ties randomly. So please attend to that. It is a safety issue. You've heard me say that in the past. I know that it was covered, but we ask when you're approaching or moving towards the starting area from Regatta Point to really take races that are coming down the course into consideration as though it was your race, and how would you want to be having boats that were going up to the start. I'll say acting, but the point that I'm getting at is we want to provide the best racing conditions in water for competing crews. So as you move your way up to the warm-up area, please pause rowing when there's a race passing, and as Steve said, don't be taking your pressure pieces as you move down towards the warm-up area. In the warm-up area, over the years, there's been a lot of conversation about it. Most of the in the mornings is collegiate, and from personal experience, I can say very clearly that there really isn't room to do more than a start or a 10 down there, and you certainly have room to do that in the warm-up area at 500 meters long, each direction to do that here. The clockwise traffic pattern is still in place. Please stay out of the middle. Don't cross. It makes it harder for coxswains to see you if you're not in the traffic pattern, and we want to avoid collisions. It can get busy, and that's why. We will have a marshal in the warm-up area to help maintain the traffic pattern, but their primary role is to actually make sure your crews get to the starting line on time. So they will start calling out to line up in order of your lanes in advance of your race. So really, from a planning purpose standpoint, Coxswains, you should plan on the fact that your warm-up is largely over while the race ahead of you is lining up. There's only 10 minutes between, and by the time you get lined up, it's not as much time as it might think. We will also have a person on the dock helping to make sure that we're moving into the starting area. So there's a lot of support to make sure that everybody's getting to the line on time. I want to reiterate that across from the Donahue Rowing Center, there's very shallow water at the pump house. Please give that a lot of space. We want everybody to keep their skags. Let's see. If during the race you are being given instruction by your referee, we absolutely have no problem with the coxswain raising a hand to acknowledge, but let's make sure that you respond with action more than just raising your hand, because generally speaking, if you're given any guidance from the referee, there's a reason, and we want to make sure everybody stays safe. Please make sure that you're locked on to your starting docks 2 minutes in advance of your race. If you're not, there's a very strong chance, particularly as the day goes on, that you will be assessed a warning for being late to the line. We don't want that. We want to make sure that everybody is starting warning free, but we also want to make sure that the regatta stays on time. And we also don't want you sitting on the starting line for much more than that, because we want to make sure everybody stays warm. Our starting sequence will begin with the starter acknowledging the crews by name, and then attention, go. We will be using a flag. Once we begin naming the crews, hands are no longer acknowledged. So if you're making adjustments, you're welcome to raise your hand. Please make the adjustments, but know that as we move through the naming of the crews, we're going to continue to progress. Breakage zone is not delineated by buoys any longer, correct, Thad? Okay, so
Correct.
I believe we have it as 100 meters. Eric and or Steve, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, it should be 100
Yes.
meters.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. And then at the end of the race course, please take a moment to regain your composure, sorry. We will make sure that everybody's okay. We'll probably drive up a little closer, and if people are laying back in the boat, which we obviously discourage, we'll probably ask you if it's all right. I do expect that it's going to be a little warm. They're talking about 80+ degrees, so I can't emphasize enough that we make sure that our athletes stay hydrated. Oftentimes the regatta has water on referees' launches and at the docks at Regatta Point, but we want to encourage a consistent intake, because what happens is if you don't, people tip over and it gets very exciting. In the afternoon, we will call you into the medal docks. So clearing the finish area is pretty important. If you have a reason for an objection at any point or for any reason, please raise your hand immediately after the finish. If you bring it up on land, it's a little too late. So we want to accommodate any real objections, and but please make sure you raise your hand on land. Please use cell phones to maintain regatta time. And I don't think that I have anything else, unless I missed something. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to a great day of racing.
Thank you, Doug. All right, just to go over a quick procedural. In the event of a emergency, let's start with medical emergency first. As Doug said, if you do have a medical emergency in your boat, please, we have lots and lots of safety resources on the water between the U.S. rowing officials, the police, the EPOs, the fire department, plenty. If there is an issue in the boat, make it known, put your hand in the air. We've had a couple issues where rowers had forgotten their inhalers. So if you know you need an inhaler, please take it along in the boat. And if you have somebody in your crew that has an issue, don't be afraid to put that hand in the air and get somebody's attention. We'll get to you immediately. In the event of a weather emergency, just keep in mind that if you are between 290 and the 1,000 meter mark, so it's 1,000-meter mark on this, but it's 500 meters in the gazebo. You are going to evacuate the lake towards the DRC. If we go from 1,000 meters to the finish line, you're going to go to Regatta Point, and that's in the event of a thunderstorm, something like that. But the weather, knock on wood, looks fantastic right now. Warm and sunny, slight winds. And once again, if that has to happen, the announcement will be made by our safety personnel between U.S. Rowing and fire and police safety. And just a quick wrap up, please. No public urination. I know we put it, it's in everybody's packet every year. Just please, porta potties are provided throughout Regatta Point, and anything that you bring on the water by a crew must come off with the crew. No handing anything to the stake boat holders. Okay, and I know there's a couple questions being loaded in now, but please, if you missed my spiel earlier, this is a visual. If you notice at the bottom right of your screen, you can see the icon that's a triangle, a square, and a circle. If you have any questions, by all means, please ask the question, and I'll bring it up to our panel as we go through. And we actually have a couple right now. So the first question I'm going to address is, should I head down to the start line 45 minutes before my start time?
It's probably a bit early. You'll probably be sitting there for a bit, but I mean, that's sort of a coach's decision on when to head to head to the starting line.
Okay. Next question. So for Friday practice, there are, go ahead, Doug.
All I was going to say is that one of the primary roles of the control commission referees is to acknowledge that crews have launched. So ideally, if we're missing somebody at the start, we have the ability to radio whether they've in fact launched, and we'll know that they're on the water. So do you want to leave that early? Coach's decision, I agree entirely with Steve.
Perfect. Thank you. For Friday practice, there are 4 lanes going down and 2 lanes back up to Regatta Point. That's a question. Is that 4 lanes down to the finish and 2 lanes going up?
So from the starting line to the finish,
right,
would be lane 6, 5, 4, and 3. But on
right,
lane 6, which is the furthest lane on the Shrewsbury side, is a no pressure lane. You can go down the course towards the starting line. In the warm up area, which we'll be using on Saturday, but also in lanes in lane 1, you can also use to head down to the start. But lane 2 is off limits.
I tossed the visual up too, just in case we had any questions. And the question does say 2 lanes back up to Regatta Point, but I think there's a little confusion. Regatta Point is closer to the finish line than it is the start. So in theory, it's 1 full lane that goes up to the start, and then 3 full lanes that go back. Right. Yeah. All right. At the next question is, at the start in bow coxed 4s, does the bow seat rower have to raise their hand also in addition to the coxswain? I'm assuming that's in to get the.
It's very helpful because the bow loader coxswain's arms are very challenging to see. It's a very good practice. Yes, that helps. If you want to ensure that your crew's hands are seen, that's a very good idea.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. Next question. If a coxswain at the start feels their course would be impeding another crew, can they remain at the starting line and have a restart?
So that's a very strategic question, I can tell. The one thing that I want to tell you is that we have good people who will be the starters. I'm very excited that we have some of the most experienced referees in the region who will be starting both in the morning and in the afternoon. So that point that I bring up there is they know what they're doing, and they have no incentive to start a race where crews don't have their points. They will provide guidance to help coxswains get their points if it's truly necessary. We're not going to start a race with a boat pointing completely in the wrong direction. If you want to risk not starting, or you make that decision, that's your decision, but understand that it may mean that if there's another false or reason not to start, or if there's a false start, you may be excluded. So there's always a gamble. The rules that are being utilized are U.S. rowing rules. So That's the expectation. Hopefully that helps.
Next question also, Doug. Will hands be
Mhm.
recognized at the start?
Hands are recognized until the naming of the cruise starts. And once the naming of the cruise begins, as we get very close to the start, we are not able to raise hands once we start naming. But again, like I said before, it's not in anybody's best interest to start a race where somebody's got a real problem. If a crew starts waving their hands like crazy, the starter's going to know it, and they're probably going to stop and ask for what's going on. Hopefully that's a helpful answer. We want everybody to have a good day of racing. That's the real goal. Everybody's worked long and hard to get here. Our job is to make sure that you can race if at all possible. We're not looking for the alternative.
Yeah, and to echo Doug's point, and I say it for all the other coaches and Coxswains meeting we hold, if you don't get your question answered here, or you still leave this coaches and Coxswains meeting feeling unsure, by all means, walk up to a U.S. rowing official. They'll have their navy blue blazers or a light blue polo on. They're easily recognizable, and they're all very friendly. By all means, go up, ask the question, and they'll help you as best they can.
And I'll be there at Regatta Point on Saturday morning as well, and that's why I'm there.
Perfect. Next one is any advice on stake boats? Is there typically a current pushing the boats horizontally? I can answer that there's no current on the lake. You will not have a current, but you could have wind pushing your boat horizontally. And if anybody else wants to chime in, my best advice would be talk to your coach about stake boats. Practice them if you're unsure about them when you get the chance. I know it's short order here, but we're looking at very low winds and there's no current on our course. So it should be straightforward with some practice if you're unsure.
Yeah, let me add to that.
Go ahead.
Let me add to that, Thad. The guidance for the stake boat holders is if a boat is going to hit the stake boat, let them hit the stake boat. Don't try to stop them, and certainly don't put your hand or any other part of your body between the boat and the stake boat, because the boat and the stake boat will win. I think that what you just said, that is really good advice. But we're not going to, nobody should be trying to add an impact.
Right. Yeah. Next question. What dock do we launch from and where exactly is the warm-up area? I mean, you Joe, if I don't know if you want to chime in on the docks they're launching from.
As far as I understand, we're launching from all the docks. There are 2 docks on the north side of the park, and there's 1 dock on the south side of the main building at Regatta Point. It's all 3 docks are available for launching, and we'll direct you at recovery.
And Joe, launching boats take priority over landing boats, yes?
Yes, they will at the main dock at Regatta Point. On the other side, where we have 2 docks, we'll designate 1 dock for launching and 1 strictly for recovery, so people aren't crossing over each other. So I'd like to make a good point that the dock masters will be directing you. They'll be giving you hand signals. So Coxswains, please be looking to see where we're asking you to come in. It should be pretty clear. I won't go through it here, but it will be very, very clear. And we'll talk to you when you're launching as well about what dock you're going to return to.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question. When we warm up on race day, do we launch and go directly to the clockwise area before the start line? Or do we go? All right. So to answer this question, they're asking, what do they do on race day? It's totally different than practice day. On race day, you're going to launch and you're going to go directly to the clockwise area before the start line, and that's it. Then you wait until you're invited onto the course. You will not go up and then down and then back up and down again. You're just going to go right up to the warm-up area, and that's where you're going to circle around those buoys in the holding pattern until your race is called. Last year, some crews used the 290 bridge as shade while waiting to be brought to the line with similar weather being expected. Is this allowed this year? anyone on that one.
I think that I mean, if that's something that your crews want to do, I don't think any referees necessarily are going to be super active trying to prevent it. But remember, the responsibility of being on time to the line is that of your crew, and we want to facilitate racing, but we don't want to be chasing people. If that makes any sense. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, I think it does. Another one for you, Doug. Will the athletes be going on go or on the drop of the flag for the start?
That's a great question. I did see a couple of questions pop up about the flag, and I'm sorry that I didn't mention it. We will be using a flag, and the start is on the movement of the flag. It should be very well coordinated with the word go. In other words, if I find out that one of the referees dropped the flag and 3 seconds later said go, we have work to do.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. Next question. Will there be buoys marking every 500 meters and the sprint last 250? Yes, there are large orange buoys that mark the 500 and the 1,000 meter to go. And at the sprint, that's the last 25 buoys actually turn red, and that marks the sprint. So well buoyed. What kind of pieces can be done in the clockwise area near the start? I think that was covered. I don't know if we want to go over that again briefly.
Yeah, I would just say none. Once you're down, again, we have to understand there's going to be a lot of boats, probably at least one race worth of boats waiting, but when people get there. So I wouldn't consider pieces, again, maybe a start in the high five. But again, I would really focus on getting a good warm up in on land.
Okay. Next question. Can I still make micro adjustments of my point while they name the crews at the start, Doug?
Of course. Absolutely.
Good question. Will there be a horn or a flag at the finish? Sorry, go ahead.
Let me elaborate on that. You certainly can, so that we don't recognize the hands once we begin the naming, but we absolutely allow movement in the boat as long as your bow ball does not cross the line of the start. If you bop over that line while making adjustments, it's we want you to race, and we want you to have a good race.
Perfect. Thank you. There is another. Will there be a horn or a flag at the finish line?
It should be both, right?
There should be both. Correct. Yes. Both will be there. Is the halfway point the gazebo? No, the gazebo is a little less than 500 meters. What is the primary launch dock from Regatta Point?
North docks?
North docks are usually the primary. Joe, I don't know if you want to jump in on that one. Or...
Yeah, I think they're definitely more efficient. You won't be passing other crews that might be coming in. Some crews will definitely use the south end dock, but if it were I coaching, I'd say get my crews on the north dock. It's closer to the start line, and it'll be more orderly up there.
Thank you, Joe. The next question is, what happens in the case of a photo finish? Is it by inches or millimeters? So a photo finish is pretty unlikely. We have a pretty accurate camera on the finish line that measures to the thousandths of a second.
It's actually in pixels, if I'm not mistaken.
It is very much in pixels, so they can usually pinpoint. I think in the past there have been very few photo finishes.
Go look at the results from Eastern Sprints, and you'll see how close they can determine it very easily.
How soon before race should we be lined up to start going on the course? Doug?
So you should be able to move about the warm-up area very freely until the race before you is called in, and at that point you should be aware that the race before you has been called in, and you should be well wrapped up with whatever movement you have planned. And the marshal should be starting to call you to line up in front of the Donahue Rowing Center docks in order of your lanes. Ideally, we'd like to have lane 1 enter the course first. You'll be entering from the Shrewsbury side across, so you'll enter to the port side of lane 6 and move across, which is why we don't want lane 6 to enter the course first. We would like lane 1 to enter the course first because they're not in the way of anybody. Sometimes it does get a little out of order, but that's what we're trying for. And it really is going to be by the race ahead of you.
Perfect. And then the last question we have here is gazebo. Excuse me. So the gazebo is a little less than 500 meters from the start. So you'll be at, I think it's like 470 meters into the race, into the piece. Then you will go past the 500 meter mark and keep going. So it's a little less than 500 from the start.
And the start's on the north end of the lake and the finish is to the south.
Right. Another one just popped up. Which direction is north in relation to the Route 9 bridge? So the Route 9 bridge is just past the finish line. So everything, including Regatta Point, let me just be very clear. If the Route 9 bridge is a very large blue arch bridge. You can't miss it. It's just past the finish line. We're not going anywhere beyond that. Everything towards the course side is considered north. So north is everything on your side of the Route 9 bridge. So it's the entirety of the course. It's the start. If you stand on the launch docks, left is north, going away from the Route 9 bridge. And then just to reference the 290 bridge, I don't know how clear the image behind me is, but it's another large bridge, but it's high up in the air and it's a red color. That's the 290 at the very north end of the lake that we're talking about, not going under that as well. Next question, are there 6 lanes and does that include lane 0? Steve, I don't know if you want to answer that one or.
Well, there are 6 lanes. We generally don't use lane 0.
And then, yeah.
Is lane 0, Thad, is lane 0 fully buoyed?
No, lane 0 is no longer fully buoyed, and I believe.
And there is no lane 0.
There, is the dock bow or stern first?
Well, if you're in a 4, it would be a stern Cox 4, stern first, and in an 8, bow first.
And then is lane 6 fully buoyed? No. We have removed the outside of lane 6. So lane 6 is not a fully buoyed lane. What is the rule regarding, Doug, this one's for you. What is the rule regarding profanity during racing? Are we not allowed to curse in the boat even though it is not towards another crew?
So one of the things that I absolutely adore about rowing is that it's a sport that has a great deal of courtesy. And so, no, cursing's not allowed. It's considered very unsportsmanlike. And I think we all know that.
Yeah, agreed. Can you stop on the way up to the warm-up area passing the course?
You can, but be very mindful of someone that may be coming up on your bow or stern. Yeah. I mean, if it's gonna, I would stop very briefly.
Perfect. And with that, we have run out of questions. So Steve, Betsy, Joe, Eric, Doug, I don't know if you have any other final remarks you would like to make or.
No, I'm just looking forward to a great day of racing on Saturday. And
something did come up last year that I think I put in my notes that athletes were requested to keep their unis up while they're on the water, keep their full uniform on while they're in their water or on the water. So remind your athletes of that.
Perfect. And if there's anything I'd like to reiterate, if there's anything that you missed or you want to revisit on this whole slide, this is recorded. This has been recorded, and it will be posted on the LOC's YouTube page, which will be fully distributed to everybody at NEIRA. So wherever it will be distributed, it'll be readily available. So please look for the link from this meeting. And with that, I think that covers everything. Oh, we had one more question. Oh, no, just a thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Not a problem.
Thank you,
We think it's
everybody.
good,
We'll
too.
see you this weekend.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good one.